My name is Gerald Pruitt. I'm 67 years old, retired CFO, and until recently the man who paid the mortgage on the house my son lived in. I say lived in because he doesn't live there anymore, neither does she. After my son told me I wasn't invited to Christmas dinner because his fiancée wanted the house to herself, I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I simply got in my truck and drove away. 2 days later, 30 missed calls. I let it ring to 31. This is how that happened. It was December 14th. I was parked in the driveway of 14 Crestwood Lane, a $320,000 colonial I'd put $60,000 down on 2 years earlier. In my coat pocket was a small velvet box. Inside it was my late wife Margaret's watch, a vintage piece she'd worn every single day for 28 years. I was early for lunch, sitting there with the engine off when my phone buzzed on the dash. Dad. Elliot's voice was tight, rehearsed. Serena and I have been talking. About Christmas. I already knew where it was going. That tone is the one he uses when she's standing right next to him, feeding him lines. Her parents are flying in. Her dad, Clifford, her mom, Gloria. It's going to be a full house and Serena really wants this year to be intimate. Just close family. Close family. I looked at the wreath on the front door, the one I'd paid for last November. So I'm not close family, I said. Dad, don't make it weird. You've got your apartment downtown. We'll do dinner in January. I sat there a moment, 2 years of mortgage payments, property taxes, the $4,200 water heater I'd replaced in September without being asked, the new fence Serena had wanted along the back lot line, and I wasn't close family. Okay, I said, I understand perfectly, Elliot. Enjoy Christmas with the Alcotts. I put the truck in reverse. The watch went into the glove compartment. I had somewhere else to be. I drove straight to First National Bank downtown. I'm not the kind of man who slams doors or sends angry texts. I'm the kind of man who spent 35 years making cold financial decisions, the kind that actually fix problems. Stuart Weston, the branch manager, had my accounts pulled up before I finished sitting down. The standing transfer to 14 Crestwood Lane, I said. The $1,600 mortgage payment. Cancel it. The homeowner's insurance auto draft 2. Cancel the internet service. The pool maintenance contract. And the landscaping fee. Stuart looked at the screen, then at me. Mr. Pruitt, that's your son's address. You've covered those automatically for 2 years. I know whose address it is, I said. Cancel them all, effective immediately, he typed. The keys clicked like a closing argument. Done. I walked out of that bank feeling lighter than I had in 2 years. The winter air hit my face, and for once it didn't feel cold. It felt like something I'd earned. I didn't go home. I drove to a diner on Route 9, ordered a burger and a beer, and ate alone. It was the best meal I'd had in months. No one needed anything from me. No one was calculating what I was worth to them. I was just a man eating a burger. That evening I returned to my apartment. Not the modest one-bedroom on the second floor that Elliot thought I lived in, but the penthouse on the 24th floor of the same building. Elliot had never asked to see it. He'd assumed the address meant the rental unit by the mailboxes. I'd never corrected him. Some things you leave in place for a reason. I poured a glass of 18-year scotch and opened my laptop. Margaret's photo was on the screensaver. I looked at her for a long moment. Then, against my better judgment, I opened Facebook. There it was. A photo Serena had posted an hour earlier. Caption, "Finally, a Christmas with people who bring the right energy. Blessed." The photo was taken in the dining room of Crestwood Lane. At the head of the table, in the chair I had sat in every time I'd come for dinner, sat a man I recognized from the photos Elliot had shown me. Clifford Alcott, red-faced, holding a glass of wine, wearing a blazer that was one size too small. He looked like a man who believed he'd earned something he hadn't paid for. Next to him was Gloria, wearing a necklace that looked uncomfortably similar to one Margaret had left in her jewelry box. A piece I had handed to Elliot before Serena moved in, thinking it would be kept safe. I closed the laptop and picked up my phone. I dialed Arnold Briggs, my attorney, my closest friend for 36 years, the only man who knew exactly what I was worth and exactly what documents existed with my name on them. "Arnold," I said when he picked up, "I need you to pull the demand note on 14 Crestwood Lane." A pause, then a low, dry chuckle. "I've been wondering when you'd call." The demand note was a document Arnold had drafted the day I helped Elliot buy the house. Elliot had signed it in a stack of closing paperwork without reading a single page. He'd been too busy talking about the garage and the pool deck. I'd never mentioned it existed. I hoped I'd never need it. The note stated clearly, every dollar I contributed to the property, down payment, monthly mortgage, taxes, insurance, accrued as a secured debt against the title. If the house was ever sold without my written consent, the full balance came due immediately at closing. It had been filed with the county clerk the same afternoon we signed. It had been sitting there, quiet, for 2 years. I set the phone down and went to bed. I slept better than I had in months. January 1st, I was standing knee-deep in the Snake River with a fly rod in my hand when my phone went off. I already knew who it was before I looked. "Dad, what did you do?" Elliot's voice was not the voice of a 29-year-old man. It was the voice of someone who had just watched their bank account go negative in real time. "The mortgage drafted automatically, but your transfer wasn't there. I'm overdrawn. I've got insufficient fund notices on my phone for the electric bill, the cable, the gym. The internet is out at the house. What is going on?" I watched the water move around my boots. "Happy New Year, Elliot. Are you serious right now? Is this about Christmas? Because we wanted one holiday without you there." "It's about respect," I said. "You told me you wanted privacy, you wanted to focus on your close family. I'm respecting that. Financial boundaries are part of it. You can't just stop paying without warning. You uninvited me from my own house without warning," I said. "You make a good salary. The mortgage is yours to cover. I don't have the liquidity right now. Why not?" Long pause. "The kind that answers the question before the words do. We leased a car," he said, "before the Alcotts came in. Serena wanted to pick them up in something better than my Accord. The down payment was $5,500. I closed my eyes. He had drained his savings account to lease a vehicle to impress people he'd known for 2 years, and he'd done it assuming I would keep covering the roof over his head without ever being asked, without ever being thanked, and apparently without ever being invited to sit at the table. "So you spent your safety net on appearances," I said, "and counted on me to cover the rest." "Dad, please, the Alcotts are still here. I can't even buy groceries right now. The card got declined at the store this morning." "That sounds like a close family problem," I said. "Ask Clifford. He seems like a capable man." "Dad, wait. I'm fishing," I said. The fish are biting. I ended the call, put the phone in my chest pocket, and cast my line back into the current. I caught 3 trout that afternoon. I cleaned them on the bank with my hands cold from the water. It was honest work, the best kind. 2 days after the river, I sat in my study across from Randall Fitch. He's a private investigator I've used twice before. He charges $275 an hour and earns every cent of it. He slid a manila folder across the desk without preamble. Clifford Alcott, Serena's father, had filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Florida 4 months ago. The trustee had flagged the filing for fraud. Clifford had funneled assets into shell accounts to avoid a $180,000 judgment from a failed construction project. He wasn't just broke. He was being actively hunted by 3 separate creditors and 2 process servers who hadn't been able to locate him since November. I turned the page. His condo in Boca Raton had been foreclosed. The bank took possession on November 3rd. The sheriff gave them 48 hours to vacate on December 8th, 6 days before Elliot called to uninvite me from Christmas. Randall pulled out a second set of photos, airport surveillance from the day the Alcotts arrived. I counted the luggage in the frame. 9 boxes, 4 trunks, a birdcage with a parakeet inside. They had not come for the holidays. They had moved in. I sat back in my chair and let that settle. This was not about Serena wanting a quiet Christmas. This was a coordinated move. Get me out of the picture, secure the address, and use the house I was paying for as a refuge from the creditors chasing Clifford across state lines. Serena had known. You don't pack 9 boxes for a 10-day visit. She had known her parents were homeless and on the run, and instead of being honest with Elliot, she had engineered my removal to buy herself time. I looked at Randall. "Is there anything else in here I should know about?" He tapped the back page. "The camera footage. I had installed a security camera system when I bought the house, hardwired into a cloud account, motion activated. I had not looked at it once in 2 years. I respected their privacy." Randall had pulled the footage from December 22nd. Elliot had been out. Serena had been at a spa appointment, charged to the emergency card I had given Elliot for household repairs. Clifford and Gloria had been alone in the living room. He handed me a printed transcript of the audio. Clifford's voice, "We need to move faster. The old man is still sharp. If he figures out about the Florida situation, he'll cut the money off entirely." Gloria, "So what do you want to do?" Clifford, "After the wedding, we work on the boy. Get him to add the old man's name to a power of attorney. He lives alone. No one checks on him. We move things slowly and no one notices until it's too late." I set the transcript down on the desk. I read it again. They were not planning to mooch indefinitely. They were planning to use Elliot's marriage as a legal mechanism to gain control over my finances. Declare me incapacitated, assign guardianship, move assets offshore before the Florida courts caught up with Clifford. I picked up my phone and called Arnold. "Pull the demand note," I said, "and get ready to use it." A week after my conversation with Randall, I got a Zillow alert on my phone. 14 Crestwood Lane, listed $401 and $5,000, and I set my coffee down and read it twice. Serena had done the math that desperate people always do. The house had appreciated since I bought it. She figured the first mortgage balance was somewhere around $248,000. Subtract that from $415,000 and you get $167,000 in equity. She and Elliot were planning to sell the house, pocket the profit, pay off their debts, and start fresh somewhere new. Clean slate. No more pressure from the old man. What she didn't know was that the title had a second lien on it, mine, and it had been sitting there filed with the county clerk for 2 years. I called Arnold. They listed it, I said. I see the alert, he said. Want me to flag the title now? No, I said. Let them get an offer, let them accept it, let them walk into that closing room thinking they're about to walk out with a check in their hands. I want them to taste it first. Arnold was quiet for a moment. You're a patient man, Gerald. I've been patient for 2 years, I said. A few more weeks won't hurt. 3 weeks later, they had an offer. Full asking price from a developer named Philip Drummond who wanted a quick close. Elliot called me that Wednesday. His voice had that old confidence back, the tone he used when he thought he'd outmaneuvered a situation. Dad, just wanted to let you know, we sold the house. Closing is Friday. We're going to pay off the bank and move on. We don't need the support anymore. We're handling things. That's good to hear, I said. I hope the closing goes smoothly. It will, he said, and he hung up. I called Arnold. Friday at 10. Bring the demand note. The conference room at Centennial Title smelled like burnt coffee and fresh paperwork. It was a plain room on the 4th floor, the kind of place designed to move money quietly from one name to another. To Elliot and Serena, that room was a finish line. I got there at 90:55. Elliot was already seated, relaxed, spinning a pen between his fingers. Serena sat across from him in a white coat, phone in hand, texting. Philip Drummond was at the far end of the table checking his watch. Sylvia Brent, the escrow officer, had a stack of documents organized in front of her. Elliot looked up when I came through the door. His expression shifted from relaxed to confused. Dad, this is a private closing. You don't need to sign anything. I know, I said. I pulled out the chair at the end of the table and sat down. Arnold set his leather portfolio on the table beside me and opened it without a word. Serena looked up from her phone. She didn't say anything yet, but I watched her eyes move to the portfolio and stay there. Arnold slid the demand note across the table to Elliot. 1 page, clean, notarized. Elliot picked it up. His face went still as he read. What is this, he said. It wasn't really a question. Your signature, I said. Bottom of the page. You signed it at the original closing 2 years ago. Arnold explained it the way he always does, flat and precise. Every dollar Gerald Pruitt had contributed to the property. The $60,000 down payment, 24 months of mortgage at $1,600 property taxes, insurance, all of it accrued as a secured second lien against the title. Total balance with accrued interest, $138,000, triggered automatically upon any attempted sale without written consent of the lien holder. Serena put her phone face down on the table. This is a trick. You had him sign something he didn't read and now you're using it to take our house. It was filed with the county clerk the same day as the original closing, Arnold said. It has been on the public record for 2 years. Sylvia, I said, what's the payoff on the first mortgage? Sylvia pulled up the screen. Approximately $228,000, Mr. Pruitt. And the sale price is $415,000, I said. So after the bank takes their $248,000, there's $167,000 left on the table. My lien is $138,000. That leaves $29,000 before closing costs and broker fees. Sylvia typed quietly. After the 5% commission and estimated closing costs, the net to the sellers would be approximately $0. Serena stood up. Her chair scraped back hard against the floor. You planned this, she said. Her voice was controlled, but her hands were not. You let us list the house. You let us stage it, market it, find a buyer. You waited until we were sitting here to do this. I waited until you tried to sell something that had my name on the debt, I said. That's when the note activates. That's what Elliot agreed to. Elliot was still looking at his signature. He hadn't spoken since he read the document. His face had the look of a man doing arithmetic that keeps coming out wrong. I don't have $138,000, he said quietly. I can't pay this off. I know, I said. So what happens to the sale? I looked at Philip Drummond, who had been watching all of this with the expression of a man who wanted his morning back. Without my written consent, the title can't transfer clean, I said. The sale can't close. Drummond stood up. He buttoned his jacket. I'm not buying a clouded title. He looked at Sylvia, returned my deposit. He walked out without looking at either of them. The room went very quiet. Serena turned to me. You're going to fix this. You're going to sign whatever you need to sign and let this close. You owe us that. I owe you nothing, I said. I kept my voice even. I paid your mortgage for 2 years. I paid your taxes and your insurance. I replaced your water heater. I paid for the fence along your back lot because you asked. I did all of that while you were planning how to use my son's marriage to take control of my finances. Her face changed, just slightly enough. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. You will. I said. I stood up and straightened my jacket. Arnold, I think we're done here. We walked out. Behind us, I heard Serena's voice rising, and then Elliot's, low and flat, and then nothing as the door swung shut. Serena posted the video that same evening. I was back in my penthouse, glass of scotch in hand, when my phone started buzzing with notifications. I opened the app and found myself tagged in a video that already had 40,000 views. The thumbnail showed Serena sitting on the front steps of Crestwood Lane, eyes red, holding a cardboard box. The caption read, "My future father-in-law just destroyed our lives because we wanted one Christmas alone." I pressed play. She spoke quietly, which was smart. Quiet reads as sincere. She described me as a controlling man who had secretly attached conditions to a gift, who had waited in silence for 2 years before springing a trap at the worst possible moment. She said we were going to lose the house. She said we had nowhere to go. She cried on cue and the comments flooded in, monster. One user wrote, another. This is financial abuse. This is why children should never accept money from parents. A third, someone find out where this man lives. By midnight, the video had 200,000 views. Local blogs picked it up. By morning, my name and the address of my decoy apartment were in 3 comment sections. I watched it all from the 24th floor with my second scotch and thought about what she'd actually done. She had opened a door. She had invited the public into our financial dispute. And if she wanted the world to see our finances, I was prepared to show them everything. I called Arnold at 7 in the morning. Have you seen it? I have, he said. We can sue for defamation. That takes years, I said. She wants a reaction today. Let's give her one. Come to the penthouse. Bring the folder. I did not buy a ring light. I did not use a filter. I sat in my living room with my laptop open and a projector aimed at the white wall behind me. Arnold sat off to the side with the Randall folder on his knee. I pressed the live button and watched the comments start rolling in immediately. Angry ones, people who had seen Serena's video and came ready. I let them vent for 30 seconds. Then I looked into the camera. My name is Gerald Pruitt. I'm the man you've been hearing about. Before you make up your mind, I'd like to show you what I've actually been paying for. I clicked the remote. The projector threw a spreadsheet onto the wall behind me. 2 years of transactions. Every transfer, every auto draft, every charge on the emergency card I'd given Elliot for household needs. Serena says they were struggling, I said. Let's look at the month of November. The month, she told Elliot, they couldn't afford to fix the furnace filter. I walked through the lines one by one. The spa appointment on November 4th, $310. The clothing purchase on November 11th, $4 and $840 at a boutique downtown. The dinner reservation on November 19th for 4 people at a steakhouse, $620. All of it on the emergency card. That is not the spending of a struggling household, I said. That is the spending of people who believed someone else would always cover the bills. I clicked to the next slide. The leased vehicle. The $500 down payment pulled from Elliot's savings account on December 10th, 4 days before he called to uninvite me from Christmas. He spent his entire financial cushion to lease a car to impress his future in-laws, I said, and then assumed I would keep paying the mortgage indefinitely. The comments section had slowed. The insults were thinning. Question marks were appearing. I clicked to the next slide. Clifford Alcott's bankruptcy filing. The fraud flag from the Florida trustee. The foreclosure notice on the Boca Raton condo dated November 3rd. Serena's parents did not fly in for Christmas, I said. They arrived with 9 boxes, 4 trunks, and a bird cage. They had been evicted from their home in Florida 6 days before my son called to tell me I wasn't welcome at the holiday table. They moved into the house I was paying for, permanently, without telling my son the truth about why. I let that sit. Then I nodded to Arnold, who opened the folder and passed me the printed transcript. And then there is this, I said. This is a recording from the security camera I installed in the house when I bought it 3 years ago. December 22nd, my son was out. Serena was at a spa. Her parents were alone in the living room. I read Clifford's words aloud slowly, the way you read something that needs to land without interference. After the wedding, work on the boy. Power of attorney. He lives alone. No one checks on him. Move things slowly. The comment section went silent for a full 3 seconds. Then it reversed completely. Someone typed in capitals. He brought the receipts. Another, she played us. Look at those numbers. Another, that man on the recording needs to be reported. I looked into the camera one more time. I did not take my son's house because I was hurt. I stopped paying for a property that was being used to shelter a man running from fraud charges in Florida by people who were planning to use my son's marriage to gain access to my finances. That is not a family disagreement. That is a scheme, and I'm not going to fund it. I ended the stream. Arnold leaned back in his chair. You just turned 200,000 people around in under 10 minutes. That's not why I did it, I said. I picked up my phone and forwarded the full audio file from the security camera directly to Elliot's number. No message, no explanation, just the file. Then I called Randall, the Florida creditors. Do they have a current address for Clifford Alcott? Not yet, Randall said. They do now, I said, and gave him the Crestwood Lane address to pass along through the appropriate channels. I poured the last of the scotch and sat by the window. The city below was lit up and moving, indifferent to all of it. Somewhere across town, Elliot was about to listen to a recording that would answer every question he hadn't thought to ask. The process servers found Clifford Alcott at 14 Crestwood Lane the following morning, 2 of them. One from a civil court in Broward County, one representing a private creditor out of Tampa. Randall sent me a photo. Clifford was standing on the front porch in a bathrobe, holding a mug of coffee that was probably bought with my son's money, looking at 2 men who had been searching for him for 3 months. He was served before 9 a.m. The bank moved quickly after that. When creditors start circling a foreclosed property and the mortgage is already in default, institutions protect their assets without sentiment. First National filed the emergency preservation notice within 48 hours. The sheriff's deputies came to Crestwood Lane on a Tuesday with a locksmith and a 20-minute notice. Randall sent me the video from across the street. Elliot came out first. He was wearing the same clothes he'd had on at the closing. He carried 2 black garbage bags over his shoulder. He stood on the sidewalk and looked back at the house for a long moment, at the windows, at the door, at the life he'd built on a foundation he'd never actually laid himself. Serena came out behind him pulling a single suitcase. She had sunglasses on. She didn't look back. Gloria sat on one of the trunks near the curb, arms crossed, weeping. Clifford stood beside her looking at his phone, probably trying to reach his attorney in Florida. The birdcage sat on top of a trunk with the parakeet shifting back and forth on its perch. The locksmith drilled out the front door cylinder and replaced it while they watched. Serena left Elliot that same week. She took the dog, packed what she could into the leased car, and drove to Florida with her parents. The lease payment on that car was already 30 days late. I did not feel what I expected to feel when I closed Randall's file. I had expected some version of satisfaction. What I felt instead was tired, not regret. Just the particular exhaustion of a man who has spent years holding something up that didn't want to stand on its own. 6 months passed. I was on a bench in Bryant Park with my travel bag at my feet, flight to Lisbon boarding in 4 hours when I saw Elliot coming down the path from the south entrance. He was wearing a brown delivery uniform with the company logo on the chest. He looked thinner. The softness that came from years of comfortable living had been replaced by something more honest. He stopped a few feet away and held his cap in both hands. Dad. Elliot, I nodded at the bench. He sat down on the far end. I listened to the recording, he said. He didn't look at me when he said it. All of it. I listened to it 4 times. I didn't say anything. I didn't know, he said. About Florida, about the bankruptcy, about any of it. He paused. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. It makes it what it is. I said, I'm in Queens now, studio apartment. I pay the rent myself. He held up one hand briefly, showing me the calluses across his palm. I deliver packages. It's not what I planned, but it's mine. That's a start, I said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He set it on the bench between us. I recognized it. The printed transcript of Clifford's recording. I wanted to give that back to you, he said. I don't want to keep it in my apartment. I left it on the bench. I reached into my coat pocket and handed him a business card. He looked at it. 14 Crestwood Lane. A new name printed above the address, Margaret Pruitt Home for Children. He stared at it for a long time. I bought the property back at the foreclosure auction, I said, renovated it. It opens next month. It's a residential program for kids aging out of foster care, kids who have no one. Elliot's jaw tightened the way it used to, and he was trying not to show something. They need a night supervisor, I said. Someone on site for the overnight shift. Small room off the back hallway. It doesn't pay much, but it comes with a purpose. You'd be keeping watch over kids who don't have a father looking out for them. He looked at the card for a long time. Then he looked at me. I'll take it, he said. His voice was quiet and steady. I stood up and picked up my bag. He stood too. I extended my hand. He took it. His grip was firm and his palm was rough, and it was the most honest handshake we'd had in years. Be there Monday, I said. I walked to the curb where the car was waiting. I didn't look back. I knew he was still standing there, but I also knew he had a bus to catch and a shift to finish and a life to earn. The plane lifted out of the city just after noon, and I watched the grid of streets fall away below me, all those lives moving through all those intersections, and I thought about what 35 years of writing checks had actually cost me. Not the money. The money was never the point. What it cost me was the chance to find out sooner who was really there. If you've ever been the man in the room who paid for everything and got thanked for nothing, you already know what I'm talking about. You can't buy your way into being valued. You can't subsidize your way into being seen. At some point, the only thing left to do is close the account and find out who shows up anyway. Some people won't. That's the answer you needed. If this story hit close to home, hit that like button and subscribe. There are more of us out here than anyone wants to admit. And every one of these stories is for you.